Aye, Shepherd's Pie, greetings from the Philippines. I'm back for a coffee and a chat about a very important subject, which is insurance. Because you need it. If you come to Asia, you come to the Philippines, you go to Thailand, you go anywhere, you need insurance coverage. In case you get sick, have an accident, an emergency, you need coverage. But the question is, which do you get? Do you go with the travel insurance or do you go with medical insurance? Now, because this is an important subject, a lot of people have been asking me to make a video on this for a while. But the reality is, I've avoided doing so because I don't think I know enough about the subject to advise you in any, great way. But the good news is, I found a man who can. A fella called Michael Ottstad, who's an insurance consultant. He's got a company over here. He's got an office in, I believe it's Angeles City, and an office in Manila. And he's got a very good team. I've heard nothing but good things about him. I've got an expat friend over here in Dumaguete who is my go-to source. If ever I have a problem, if ever I need something with this or advice on this, I always say to him, and he always knows a man. And when I made a video the other day saying that I needed to transfer from my travel insurance to medical insurance, he was straight on to me, messaging me saying, this is the guy, fantastic service. Now, a lot of people have used him over the years and he's always been great for them. So that was good enough for me. If he recommends them, I know they're good. So I contacted Michael, asked him, explained my situation, that I am on travel insurance at the moment, but that expires in October, and I will need to transfer over to private medical insurance of some kind. And he was kind enough to say, I'll come on the channel and he'll talk to us about it. So that will be in part 2. I'm spreading this over 2 videos because I don't want it to go on too long, and we're going to cover your options when it comes to private insurance, if that's the route you go down, in the next video when we've got Michael on, because I'm going to talk to him on Skype. I'm going to talk to him about a couple of policies that I'm interested in, because he represents a company called Pacific Cross, and there's the select plans and there's the royal plans, which I want to talk to him about, because they seem to be aiming at different, big difference in the prices and big difference at the coverages. And I'm not quite sure which option is right for me. At this moment in time, I'm leaning more towards a select option, but we'll talk about that in the next video when Michael comes on, and he can answer the questions, and he'll be able to tell us what the options are, what might be right for you in your different circumstances, because obviously it will depend on your budget and your age and what you're looking for. So this first video, I'm just going to talk about my travel insurance, why I went with travel insurance and what the problems are with travel insurance. So say the second part, it will be more about private medical insurance. So, travel insurance. Why did I go with travel insurance? Well, it was easy, because I'm travelling. One of the things that always amazes you when you look at, private insurance policies compared to travel insurance policies is, my God, you get so much more coverage in terms of an accident, etc. I mean, my policy now on the travel insurance is, I think it covers me up to, it's either 5 million or 15 million or something in medical bills, etc. Now, that's not going to happen. I mean, if I have an accident, it's not going to cost anywhere near that. But it kind of blows your mind that they will offer that kind of coverage compared to private medical insurance. Because a lot of the policies you'll see over here, one of the ones I'm looking at, it's only offering like £1 million pesos, in coverage, which is like £14,000, which is nothing compared to, the 5 million you'll get of a travel insurance policy. But the reason for that is, your travel insurance policy is only looking at emergencies. That's going to be no use to you if you start getting, you've got a lump here, or you've got, you start coughing, or you've got a cold, you've got flu, or whatever like that, or something long term. Your travel insurance is just for your emergencies. It's going to get you home, if it's a decent policy, back to your home country to fix you up. If it's a good policy. And this is one of the troubles with travel insurance. How do you know if you've got a good policy or not? Because they might say that they're going to cover you for this and they're going to cover you for that, but are they? Well, hopefully you won't have an accident and you won't find out. But that's always been a big worry for me, which is why I'm particularly looking forward to talking to Michael, because I have always used brokers in the past. When I had my businesses in the UK and my rental properties now, I used an insurance broker because I found them to be invaluable, because they will help you and they will take your side if they're a good one, if you've got a claim. Because dealing with insurance companies can be incredibly difficult, if you don't know what you're doing. But insurance brokers, I've got a personal friend in the UK who's an insurance broker. I say he takes care of all that for me, and he's been outstanding in the past. If ever I've got a concern, I'll talk to him. He advises me on the coverage. If ever there's been claims, he'll fight your corner with the insurance company, which is what you need. Which is why I'm particularly looking forward to talking to Michael, and it's great that I've heard good things about him, because I was always thinking of going with Pacific Cross, because they seem to be one of the few insurance companies that will pay the hospital directly, where you don't have to fork out huge sums with your pocket, So they were something that I was looking towards, a company that I was looking at using, but now I found there's like a broker that brokes for them will fight your corner as well. That's music to my ears. And the guy who put me onto Michael was saying he knew of a few people who had been with Pacific Cross, but when they'd had problems getting in the hospital and that kind of thing. Apparently with Michael, when you use his service, he guarantees you, and he's got a nurse there on the phone, they sort everything out for you, they help you, which is, music to my ears. But as I say, that's for the next video. I'm not getting paid to do this or whatever. I'm just telling you what I've heard about his services. I've heard good things. And I've heard decent things about Pacific Cross, the company that he represents. Whether he does other companies or not, I'm not sure yet, but we can find out, when we do the video. But yeah, coming back to the travel insurance. Yeah, travel insurance will tend to give you a lot bigger coverage in an emergency scenario. Don't think the private insurance companies can afford to do that, because they're going to have to pay out, or they're envisaging that they might have to pay out for non-emergency treatments, or things that come along like that. So they're far more likely to pay out, I would have thought. That's the way they look at it. But I was travelling, so the main reason that I went with the travel policy was because they cover you for things that medical insurance doesn't cover you for. I'm getting flights, I'm going places, I've got baggage, I've got items of value. So for me, non-brainer to go with the travel insurance, and it tends to be cost effective. My policy, I could have got one with the same company for £290 for the year, but it was classed as a 2-star policy. And when you started looking at some of the small print and things like that, there were only certain hospitals you could go into, etc. So I went up a couple of levels and I took their 5-star policy, which cost me £555. Now, that works out about £45 a month. And when you look into what it gives me in terms of flights and baggage coverage and, valuable items and hospital coverage, etc., it's all very good. But the trouble is, there are limitations. Did I do the right thing taking out the policy? Because people have said, to me, because I'm no expert on this, as I'm saying, that's why I've got Michael on, in the next video, have said to me, are you sure you're covered when you've been in the Philippines for a year? A lot of insurance policies, they require you to, only be in certain countries for certain months, etc., like the 90-day periods and things. I don't know is the answer. It's not something I looked into. I'm just telling you why I went with a travel insurance policy, and I'm telling you, if you're thinking of doing the same thing, you want to check this out. You want to think about maybe going for a broker. You'll pay a little bit more, but you can tell the broker exactly what your situation is going to be, and if they're a good broker, you'll have the peace of mind that they will find the policy that's right for you. Now, hopefully, I'm not going to need to claim on my insurance policy because, we're in August now and it runs out in October. But these are the things you've got to think about when it comes to travel insurance. Provides a lot more coverage than the medical insurance, as I say, because it covers everything, doesn't just cover medical emergencies. But are you going to be covered in every situation? You don't know. I mean, that's why I went for a more expensive policy, working on the basis that the more expensive the policy was, the more likely they were to cover, to look after me. I think with my policy, from what I read and what I looked at, because I did it online, I can get into more or less any hospital if I have an accident here. I'm not sure if I went for a cheaper policy, they might insist I went into another hospital that wasn't so good, but hopefully it won't happen. Another problem with travel insurance, because it does look like a cost-effective option, it really is when you compare the coverage you can get compared to medical insurance. But as I've said, I think that's because you're far more likely to be claiming on your medical insurance when you're somewhere long-term than you are on your travel insurance. But the trouble is, to get the good deals, you invariably need to be in your home country. I could only take out the insurance policy I got while I was in the UK. When that expires in October, I won't be able to take out another policy without going back to the UK. It's the way they are. And a lot of these travel policies as well, they won't kick in, for a few weeks after you've taken the policy out. Because obviously they don't want you, having an accident and taking a policy out and then saying, oh, it's only just happened, they're covering themselves. But that's a big consideration. I looked at having a 1-year policy because I thought, when I find the place that I'm happy living, which is where I am now, the Philippines, I'll transfer over to private medical insurance, which is what's going to happen, in October. Because I'm not going to fly back to the UK just to take out another travel insurance policy. Now, I know there are some policies about where you don't have to go back to your home country, but they're damned expensive. I looked into a couple of them and they were like double, what I'm paying now. So, these are the reasons why I decided to go with travel insurance over medical insurance. Because I take the view, definitely while I'm travelling, and definitely now, if God forbid something, happened to me which was serious, I just want to go home. If I got, God forbid, a terrible illness or whatever, which was going to require, which might be life-threatening and it's going to take a few months of treatment, I'd rather do it back in the UK, on the NHS. Now, I know you hear terrible horror stories about the NHS, but my mother had cancer last year and they were brilliant with her. Don't believe all the terrible stories you make, that you hear. They can still do a fantastic job. I know a few people they've looked after. And I used to work when I was a carer. I know there are some bad sides to the NHS. I'm not saying there aren't, but the point is, if I'm seriously ill, I probably want to be back with my family. I want to be back in my home, getting treatment. A lot of people will say, they'll go to Thailand because the healthcare is a lot better there. Well, it is. But do I really want to go over to Thailand and have chemotherapy by myself for several months? I don't know, but that's an option that I could take when it happened. I don't think I'd want to stay in the Philippines and get treatment for something serious like that, because the outcomes don't look too good, to be honest with you, in terms of the survival rates. And I'm not convinced about Filipino healthcare. Hopefully Michael will tell me I'm wrong and say it's fantastic, and I'll reappraise my opinion. But all I'm worried about up until this point was getting looked after in an accident and getting back to the UK. Now I've put down my roots and I'm living here, longer term, I'm in a relationship and things, then I will give more consideration to staying here and getting treatment. So, you know, I need to think about, you know, private health insurance over travel insurance, because travel insurance isn't going to cover me for that. You know, that's the reality. The question is, what level of coverage do you need? And that's going to be why it's interesting to talk to Michael, because travel insurance, you know, the more expensive generally the policy, the bigger the coverage you're covered for. But you don't have to make those difficult decisions. You know, when I've looked at the brochures that Michael sent me, there's different levels of coverage. You know, the cheapest one is £1,000,000 and it's like 20,000 pesos a year, sorry, which works out at about £300. Now, is that enough if I have a stroke or something like that? I don't know. Obviously, the more coverage you have, the more the costs go up. You know, this particular policy, the one I'm looking at, or one of the cheapest ones, is in a public ward. Do I really want a public ward? Wouldn't I rather a private room? Well, of course I would. But the trouble with that is, it costs twice as much. And am I going to use it? Hopefully I'm never going to use the policy. So I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe it would be better to go into a public ward, and if God forbid it ever happens, I'll pay the extra, if I can do, you know, to go up to a private room, rather than pay double for a private room I might never use. But as I say, these are for the next video. These are the kind of questions I'm going to ask Michael. And if it's something that you've got any questions on that you want me to ask, you know, put them in the comments. But be quick, because I'm loading this video up on Saturday night in the Philippines, and I'm going to be talking to him via Skype on Monday morning. So if you get your questions in within the next 24 hours, I can ask for you. But after that, it will be too late. So, in summary, what have we said? You know, in my opinion, if you're travelling, certainly if you are hopping from country to country, because that's what the insurance policy I've got is for. It's basically a backpacking insurance policy. It's a good one. So if you're travelling, if you're spending, like, you know, planning on spending a couple of months in Thailand, a couple of months in the Philippines, you know, then going, you know, whatever, just travelling around and moving, then I don't think you can beat travel insurance. You know, I don't think you can beat it. If you're not, if you're doing what I'm doing, which is basically coming to the Philippines, you know, to live for a year, then I think you've definitely got to do your research. And I'd suggest you probably get a broker or someone to look at it. Certainly read the small print, because it could turn out, you know, that I'm not covered anymore. But, you know, if I'm not, I'm not. I'm not going to jump on a plane and fly over to Thailand and fly back again to sort out the coverage. I'll probably talk to Michael about it, and if it turns out I'm not covered, I might go under the private medical insurance a bit sooner. But thankfully, it hasn't happened yet. So, but yeah, those are really your options. As I say, if you're travelling around, travel insurance is the one I would go for. I'm not going to advise you what to do, but it is nice when you're travelling to know that your baggage is covered and your money's covered, and you've got fantastic coverage if you have an accident, you know, and they're going to fly you home in an ambulance plane and all the rest of it. I mean, you saw what happened with Ed Sweeney, if you ever watch Ed's channel. You know, he was looked after very well by his post office policy. Hospital for a couple of months, they got him back to the UK for his operation and that. You know, if that's what you want to get back to your home country, I'd say travel insurance. That's the way I look at it. But if you want to stay, you don't want to necessarily go home to your home country, you've got roots you're planning on staying, you want to stay in the Philippines and start your treatment off, etc., then it's going to be private medical insurance. You know, I like the fact that at the moment, if I go on a plane, if I was to fly to Thailand next week, I love the fact that my cases and that will be covered. You know, that I've got emergency coverage when I get there. Don't like the fact that when I switch to the private medical insurance, then I'm going to have to take out a different policy when I go to Thailand. Although I did notice in the more expensive brochures he sent me, the royal coverage, then you can get, you know, they'll cover you for medical treatment, you know, outside of the Philippines. How long you could be out of the country for, I don't know. These are questions I will ask him in the next video. As I say, I've done it in 2 parts because you know I've got a habit, I just go on and on and on and on, can't help myself, that's just the way I am. So this first part was talking about the travel insurance, second part we'll be talking about private medical insurance. So I don't know what else I can tell you now. I think we've covered it all in my limited knowledge. But as I say, if you're planning on leaving, you're planning on travelling, make sure you get your insurance sorted out before you leave your home country. Don't come over here and then think you're gonna sort your coverage out then, because 95% of policies, even more than 95%, they will not cover you unless you take them out before you leave. And do check the small print, because I wasn't sure how long I'd be here. I could have gone for the 18-month policy. In the end, I went for the 12-month because I thought that will, you know, I'll think about travelling over. I might go back to the UK before then, but I haven't. Now, I'm damn glad I went for the 12-month policy, because I'm starting to think that, I'm starting to worry that, as I say, the fact that I've been in this country so long, they're not going to cover me as a backpacker if something happens. Hopefully I'm worrying unnecessarily. Hopefully I won't have an accident, won't have to find out. But if I'd spent the 18 months, you know, because if I find, I mean, it's one of those things, I'm bare mid and sense. I know it's ridiculous. I don't want to find out. If I find out I'm not covered, that's gonna, you know, you know, I'm gonna have to get coverage, aren't I? You know, I'm gonna have to jump ship, you know, sooner rather than later. So, as soon as someone said to me, you know, you might not be covered because you've been in one country for too long. I thought, oh God, what I should do is I should look and read, but I don't want to. I'm hoping that I am anyway, which is ridiculous, really. But there you go. That's just you know, no one's perfect. But yeah, make sure you get your coverage before you come out. I would advise you to use a broker, but if you don't want to use a broker, if cost is key and you're looking for value, certainly in the UK, I recommend you use one of the comparison sites. That's what I did, because a couple of the comparison sites, they're quite good in the sense they rate the policies for you. They, you know, the comparison site I used, it rated them, you know, from 1 star to 5 stars. So it helped me choose a policy. It rated the company I was with, and I got a 5-star policy, as I say, for £555 from a company that they rate as a 5-star company, and it's a 5-star policy. And it was about £600 cheaper than a 5-star policy with a different company, you know, so, which I'd seen without going through a broker, so without using a comparison website. So I'm very glad that I did use a comparison website, you know, so I would recommend again that you do that, but no limitations, you know, check the small print. Anyway, there we go. That's the end of the video. I've gone on far too long. Hopefully you'll join me for part 2 when we can rack Michael's brains and get some advice on what the best options, what the best policies are in the Philippines and what kind of coverage you need. Because one thing I have noticed as well, keep saying I'm going to end, I don't end, do I? Is when I'm reading these brochures, a lot of people have told me it's like one of those things that when you get to a certain age, you have to self-insure because you can't get coverage. Well, reading the brochures he sent me, you can get coverage up to like 100 years old and plus. I mean, obviously the premiums go up. I mean, it's a lot more expensive to get insurance coverage when you're in your 70s or 80s than it is for me now at 52, because I fall in the 50 to 55 bracket. But they don't seem prohibitive costs. You know, it's a lot less. I mean, the stuff that he has sent me is a lot cheaper than I thought it would be, which is why I've got to ask him some questions, because you know, these things always seem to be too good to be true. That's what I think when something looks cheaper than I'm expecting. So I'll be interested to know, you know, what the catches are, if there are any catches. But anyway, that's for the next video. That's for part 2, which I'll post one day next week. Going to round this one off now. I keep saying it, but I don't go, do I? Anyway, I'm going to go now. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it would be fantastic if you did. Whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe, be lucky.